One topic I believe needs to be discussed more is that when it comes to social programming, a woman is going to look at her preferences and her desires sexually through the lens of what's comfortable to her. But when a woman is fully aroused and a woman is fully into that mind state, when she gets into her primal animalistic instincts, that's when the things that she desires sexually shift. I don't know the exact study, I forgot. But there's the study done that shows that a woman who is looking for a long term relationship desires a smaller penis than a woman looking for a one night stand. There's another thing that shows that when a woman is ovulating, she desires a larger penis or more aggressive sex, or a man who has a more muscular body than she would in times when she's not ovulating. Now, the thing that guys need to understand is this: to a certain extent, that can be a legitimate preference. This is what I call a gentleman gigolo complex. From a certain perspective, a woman may legitimately feel that she desires something that's a little bit more average and a little smaller when she is not fully ovulated, especially when she's deeply into her social programming. And a lot of the times, when you're doing a study or a survey and you're asking women these questions, if that woman isn't sexually attracted to and aroused by the person asking her the question, then oftentimes women will resort back to people pleaser mode. And sometimes they drink the Kool Aid of their own social programming. And then a woman will start to tell you things like belittling the importance of dick size, or emphasizing that most women don't have orgasms from penetration, regardless of if they have or they haven't. And especially if she hasn't, then she'll say, "Oh, dick size doesn't matter. It's just about if you eat pussy good. It's just about this, and penetration is not important." Listen, nigga, I've been with plenty of women who said that before they got to me. And I'm not even saying this to be braggadocious. I'm saying that as a man who's been a dom, a polydom, having multiple subs. And one thing that I've realized and noticed is that once a woman is more sexually aroused, especially if she's ovulating, but if that woman is highly aroused, highly sexually attracted to a guy, the pussy opens up and she's able to accept sizes that she couldn't normally accept, and have a capacity for it to compensate it. I've been with women who had boyfriends who were maybe around 6 inches. I have these conversations so I can give this information to y'all. And I've been with women who had boyfriends who were maybe around 6 inches. And the women would be insecure because they felt like they couldn't take that, right? Because they felt like it was too long and it would make the women feel insecure. But it's because in a lot of these relationships, they were prematurely integrated. The guy wasn't in a position with respect or desire from the woman to slut her out, or he had a Madonna whore complex himself, so he couldn't fully open her up sexually. And in these particular moments, I definitely am not 6 inches past that. So I've been with women who I broke them in, right? They got fully aroused. Women often complain about, "I don't like big dicks because they hit my cervix." When a woman gets to a certain level of sexual arousal, even cervical orgasms are possible. But let's talk about the factor of A spot stimulation. A lot of times you got to be around 7 inches to even do A spot stimulation, at least 6.5. Especially when a woman's aroused to give her orgasms from that. Women have multiple orgasms from A spot stimulation. Women have some of the most deeply rooted orgasms from cervical orgasms. The A spot orgasms sometimes, and these cervical orgasms, a lot of times they bring a woman to uncontrollable tears. Now, a woman is not going to tell you that. A woman's just going to speak from the perspective of when she's not fully aroused and say, "Oh, big dicks aren't that important because a lot of times there's a big dick attached to it." Sometimes that's true. Sometimes a woman's speaking from the perspective of her experience with a particular man, and there are a lot of men like that. And a lot of guys need to be grateful for those guys. And I'm going to tell you why. Men need to be grateful towards the big dick alpha males who pump and dump these women and don't put really any effort into the sex. A lot of those guys actually do have a sex game, but they don't want to overstimulate that woman. They know that that woman is not on their level, not in their league, and they don't want to set that woman's standards so high sexually. I tell Doms and other guys I'm around all the time, don't give a woman the A game dick. If you got levels to your sex game, like if you have enough experience to have wrinkles and levels to your sex game, to where you got your A game, your B game, your C game, you got different levels of your dick. Never give a woman A game dick on the first time, unless maybe it's like some out of town type of shit. I don't even like that too much. But one thing that people need to understand is that a lot of the times when a woman is speaking about her sexual preferences from a standpoint of her social programming, she's in an unaroused state. People think different when they're horny. They think completely different. When a woman is in an unaroused state, you cannot trust what she says about her preferences, because she may even be trying to be honest with herself, but she's not being honest completely. Another thing that can happen is that a woman's comfort level to expose different aspects of sexuality in a female nature is going to be comparable to her level of sexual attraction to you. So if a woman feels like, based off of her attraction to you and how she perceives you and your archetype, that you're more of a sexual alpha male, not a social alpha male, but a sexual alpha male, she gets that energy from you, and that you're also not judgmental, she's going to open up and tell you things that, maybe men that she's spent years dating never knew. She's going to come out and tell you about her attraction to women, right? She's going to come out and tell you about the one night stands that she had because she thinks you've had them too. She's going to come out and tell you. And sometimes she might shit on a guy because of his dick size. Sometimes she might boost you up because of yours. Sometimes she may say, I'm only really fucking with you for the dick. Or she like, you know what, if your dick wasn't so good, I'll stop fucking with you already. And that's some disrespect. And those sometimes some no limit soldiers, but it's just something to understand. A woman's mindset and her perspective on sexuality when she's unaroused is not reliable or trustful. You can't trust it. Women are going to protect women when they're talking about their desires, when they're talking about things. I can't tell you that within my experience, listen, I've had women who I broke them in and they couldn't take 6 inches, and then they fucked the dude who was 9 inches after me, or they fucked the dude who was huge and they were able to take it. Now, I've also been around women who have dealt with guys who didn't have any skill and they were on the larger side. But at the same time, something to understand is that sometimes it's going to be comparable to that dude's attraction and his interest in that woman, and also his ability to learn. Women always say that a big dick doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it. What guys say is, all right, if this guy knows how to use what he has and this other guy knows how to use what he has, and one's on the larger side and one's on the smaller side, who are you going to pick? And most of the time, the answer is going to be on the larger side, depending on how aroused that woman is. But what I will say is sometimes guys do underestimate, you know, uh, their own size because they've been conditioned to porn. And sometimes dudes do underestimate it. Like there's this thing called the Goldilocks zone. The Goldilocks zone, they say, is between 6.5 and 8 inches. If you're in that zone, then most women are going to feel that you have a great size dick. But something I think about is, what if a good bit of those women who are size queens, some of those are just overstimulated, but you also have to think, what percentage of women who prefer and like bigger dicks are just women who fully tap into their sexuality and their sexual energy? Because one thing that I noticed is that just like your personality and your interactions with a woman in a dominant way, when a woman's really feminine and submissive with you, everything about your interactions, it lubricates itself for your dominance, for your aggression, for your masculinity. Everything about how she moves, her energy, her body, it responds. It's almost psychosomatic. It's like her body will respond to make her more soft, to make her more flowing, to make her more fluid, to make her more malleable. And the vagina can work the same way. Really, it can work the same way for smaller guys too. But sometimes that doesn't stick after any type of pain happens in a relationship on the emotional side. But one thing that I've noticed is like you can think about it, and it's like, are the women who are the most sexually opened up the women who really prefer the bigger dicks? Because the women who seem to be more sexual oftentimes have very feminine energy, and that feminine energy tends to be a magnet for guys with big dicks because they attract big dick energy. Women who have fake feminine energy, like Topangas, a lot of Topangas will attract smaller guys or liars. I know this is some real anecdotal pseudoscience type of shit, but just hear me out. I've had conversations with a lot of women about sexuality. Women who have that desire to control a relationship and that Topanga type of energy, they often attract a lot of guys on the smaller side. Or a guy who's still somewhat beta male in his energy and doesn't fully know himself sexually yet. But these are just some thoughts on it. Uh, I do believe that a big aspect of social programming is to exacerbate a gentleman gigolo complex. Like they talk about a Madonna whore complex, but they don't really talk about the gentleman gigolo complex. And that's because that's a coin that I phrased, but at the same time, it's a concept that's important. Oftentimes, when a woman experiences a high level of sexual attraction, she in a high level of sexual pleasure before any type of commitment is established. Sometimes that woman get locked on to you and she'll want to deal with you if she likes what she sees outside of that. But sometimes if it feels too good, she will go ahead and cut you off if she doesn't see long term potential. And sometimes it's a situation where she may prematurely judge that there's no long term potential because you may come at her directly through sex up front. Now that's a woman who likes to control things, or that's a nice girl who thinks that pussy is going to get her a relationship, which doesn't work with men who have options. It doesn't work with men who are dominant, masculine, who have their own program because she's trying to implement her own program. But at the same time, sometimes that can backfire. It can backfire. But that's another reason why I say don't give the A game dick right off the bat. But oftentimes, I do believe there's a certain level of when a woman is looking for a relationship and her social programming is really strong, she needs to separate the sexual aspect and the masculine aspect somewhat from her desire for a partner. And in her partner, she desires more of a mixture of masculine and feminine traits. She doesn't want it too masculine. That can be, she doesn't want it too masculine in size, but she'll like that for a hookup. That may even be her best sexual experience, but it's not something she wants consistently. A woman may want masculine as far as aggressive, but she doesn't want that in her everyday life. A woman may want a man who is dominant, but she may not want that on a regular basis unless the emotions are cut out of it. The thing is this: when a high level of sexual attraction and sexual desire and pleasure is in the mix, and then a woman also feels a certain way about you emotionally, one of those two has to go if her social programming is really strong. So either she subconsciously has to lower how sexually attractive she is to you and fight and contend with that in order to keep you in the box of being, a relationship material, or she has to uh, limit her your access to her on the emotional side and time wise so she doesn't get too attached to you. So it's either she has to limit her desire to be feminine and submissive with you sexually and limit your access to her sexually and control that, or she has to control your access to her emotionally and communication wise by being distant, inconsistent, just hitting you up when she wants some sex. And yes, a woman has the right to do that. That's true, but I believe in the biology first approach. The goal is to have fun, but fun is not the most important thing. I still believe in family, right? So the goal here is, you don't want to just jump out the gate, just shocking a woman too much. I've had women who I dealt with who I just shocked them, and they got confused as fuck because they thought I was just a nice guy. They thought they were just gonna sprinkle some pussy on me because sometimes I be looking like a youth pastor or a school teacher or like I'm in the military. Like these are things that I hear people say that I look like, or I look like a coach, and that's a little bit more accurate, but it's one of those things to where sometimes a woman will assume you're a certain kind of guy and try to sprinkle some pussy on you to try to bait you in so that she can get you to be her partner. But if you fuck her better than she expected, she's gonna start asking questions. And even if she's dealt with multiple men in that short span of time that you have that conversation with her, if she knows that you actively deal with multiple women, that woman may cut you off just because she feels like she knows she won't be able to control you with sex. And that's going to transition into this next video.